This can't be. I'm a bouncer. I make a living putting my life on the line.
This video contains a short section featuring flashing lights and fast-moving images. Timecodes for these sections can be found in the video description. Back in 2000, the PlayStation 2 exploded onto the home console scene. It went on to become one of the best-selling consoles of all time and still has, in my opinion, access to the greatest library of video games ever when you consider all PlayStation 1 games can be played on the PlayStation 2. The console itself was hugely anticipated after the breakout success of the PlayStation 1, and the PlayStation 2 knew it would have to launch with some quality titles. Unfortunately, the first wave of PS2 games were mostly terrible. But there's one game which should have been a launch title but was running slightly late to meet the launch window. A joint beat-em-up RPG hybrid produced by Squaresoft, a company known for producing some of the best RPGs of all time. The game was called
The Bouncer.
Now, Squaresoft was a household name by this point and had seen worldwide success with its genre-defining collection of RPGs. The Final Fantasy series, the Legend of Mana series, Vagrant Story, and one of my favorite games ever, Chrono Trigger. Square were the unbeatable powerhouse of console RPGs. So when people heard there would be a PlayStation 2 launch title made by Square, everyone expected a leap into the next generation of multi-hour, multi-choice, story-driven RPGs. What we got was The Bouncer, a 1 hour long beat-em-up which was more cutscene than gameplay. And while the cutscenes were indeed exceptional for the time, what little gameplay it had was clunky, awkward to play, and entirely unrefined. The Bouncer met with poor sales and middling to scathing reviews, but many people, including me, have fond memories of this game. So was it really that bad? To find out, I've gone back and replayed the entire thing. Actually, I've replayed the entire thing 3 full times just to get the secret final boss and to be thorough. So join me as we relive The Bouncer. I'll be critiquing the combat, the story, the god-awful voice acting, and the general replayability. I even completed the utterly random bit where, for some reason, you dress as a ninja and have to match poses to sneak past other ninjas. All to answer the simple question, The Bouncer. Was it any good? As usual, a massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube who keep the channel alive. More information on how you can support at the end. For now, let's begin. Before we put the disc in, let's just have a look at the logo, because it has words on it. Lots of words, actually. The logo reads, Scion, a man haunted by a tragic past. Within him lies strength and kindness, but also great sorrow. All this will change when he meets a girl named Dominique. These are the residents of Dog Street. The game starts with flashing light warning, an absolute barrage of images and noise essentially telling you the entire plot in a few seconds. The game basically falls over itself here to show you everything you'll be exposed to. It feels like the trailer of a film, and that is apt because the game basically plays like a film. First off, the menu. Story mode, versus mode, survival, or options. Now this looks fine. I'll go story, and my first thought is, wow, what a boring looking sub-menu. It's all grey squares, and it's silent. There's no music here. And I know that this obviously isn't gameplay, but Square is an RPG company, and this was their first foray onto the PlayStation 2. This was effectively going to be the calling card for the quality of RPGs you could expect moving forwards. And even the menu screen can be a pillar of design, of personality. It can carry an aesthetic through line for the rest of the game. A menu, especially one to start the game, can feel like part of the gameplay experience. This, however, feels like a test environment placeholder. It is painfully utilitarian. And to show that this is laziness and not incompetence, Square have made some of the most amazing menus with the most memorable visuals and haunting soundtracks you can imagine. Vagrant Story, Final Fantasy, and Chrono Trigger are good examples. So we start the game. Intro movie. Now, to its credit, some of the in-game cutscenes are rendered in-engine using in-game animations, some are game models rigged into higher quality movement, and some are fully CGI. And the CGI stuff looks great and still holds up very well even today. Now, the opening movie firmly sets up the game as a cinematic experience as it splices in the game's credits within the shots of the movie. The plot itself, however, is an absolutely insane mess. To start off with, there is a solar-powered satellite in orbit which will convert the sun's lights into microwave radiation, then send that radiation to Earth, where it will be converted back into unlimited energy, ushering in a new golden age of prosperity, and this is all made possible possible thanks to the Mikado Corporation. Our heroes are Scion, Volt, and Co., 3 bouncers of the Fate Bar on Dog Street, with Scion essentially taking center stage on the game's cover and acting as the protagonist. Now, you might be thinking, wow, Scion looks a lot like Sora from the Kingdom Hearts games, and that's because Tetsuya Nomura designed the characters for both of these games. He also went on to work on Final Fantasy X Part 2 and directed Final Fantasy Advent Children. Clearly, he is a man who likes shorts and chains. Scion himself is a bratty teenager who has a close friendship with Dominique, a girl he met a few years ago who hangs out at the bar a lot. Volt is a pierced mountain of muscle who wears trousers way too long for him with turn-ups to just below his knees. He is serious and brooding, but also knows a surprising amount about the Mikado Corporation. And finally, Ko is a wisecracking, chilled-out dude who kicks a lot. Unfortunately, they're all voice acted.
What's with the sour face? You're scaring away the customers.
Sorry, just doing my job.
Yeah. You're looking busy, Ko.
Hey, if we're not doing anything, it means the bar's doing just fine, right, Sion?
Hey, where were you? You're late.
Well, Hey, Sion, when's your birthday?
Birthday? Why?
Sion, it's your shift.
Yeah, I know.
Scion is voiced by Paul Stephen, known for Mobile Suit Gundam. He would go on to do a single voice in Suikoden 4, then stop voice acting. Volt is Michael Gregory, also from Mobile Suit Gundam, but also Laughing Bull in Cowboy Bebop, and more recently, Victor Vector in Cyberpunk 2077. And Ko, probably the best voiced of the lot, is voiced by Steve Blum, a career voice actor best known for voicing Spike Spiegel in the English dub of Cowboy Bebop. Dominique is voiced by Bridget Hoffman, an actress of moderate success who went on to work on Demon Slayer and portrayed the animated Chopper in the remake of Total Recall. All other side characters are voiced, but no one really stands out. The entire thing feels very much like the actors were given the script with no context of the lines. So the energy, delivery, and general reactions to situations or to other lines is entirely hilariously wrong. We'll see some great examples as we go. One day, some paramilitary assault troops descend on Bar Fate and, I have to say, land in the dumbest looking way ever. Head first, stuck into the floorboards. They unpack themselves, rush into the bar, and kidnap Dominique. You're then told to pick a character. There is no tutorial, you're just thrown straight into the first level. First thing to note, the opening cutscene is 7 minutes long. This will matter, so I'll just note that down. So gameplay. Right, where to begin here? The Bouncer is a third-person beat-em-up. You can move your character, but cannot control the camera, which will haphazardly fly around. At first, I thought the camera was on a preset path, but it seems instead it's been given the loosest sense of freedom and told to follow the player as best it can, but has no real idea how to do that. I mean, you're always in frame, which I suppose is the minimum I'd expect of a camera, but sometimes you are on the very edge of the frame. So we need to address this now. The Bouncer is an attempt at a cinematic game, and camera position is a major part of cinema. Where you place the camera in relation to your characters, the environment, or the situation can enhance the emotional impact of a scene or foreshadow future events. It can make the audience feel different things. Unfortunately, absolutely no part of The Bouncer uses the camera well. There's never any zoomed in or personal battles, zoomed out epic encounters. There's never any foreground ambience or background depth. The camera sticks to your character at this exact distance away the entire game. And this wastes the environment. It gives no sense of scale, and it makes all the fights feel extremely repetitive. To give an example of what I mean by use the camera to tell a story or to enhance emotional impact, Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver released 1 year before The Bouncer on previous generation hardware, and that greatly varies camera focus, zoom, and positioning depending on what is relevant to Raziel or important to the environment at any given time. On this same channel, I've reviewed God of War 1, and one of my favourite moments in gaming is when Kratos is fighting through his nightmare and the camera zooms out and you get to see the environment crumble around you. Now, I understand that God of War released several years after The Bouncer, but the principle of moving the camera to enhance a cinematic experience has been the same for years. So locked camera beat 'em up, how does it play? My first thought was, wow, this feels like a more awkward Tekken. And that makes sense because The Bouncer was co-developed by Saichi Ishii, the lead dev of Tekken 1 and 2 and Tobal 1 and 2. So the guy clearly knows beat-em-ups. In fact, I do notice later, some of the enemies' movesets are literally taken verbatim from the Tekken games. Specifically, Eddie's fighting style, and Kazuya's fighting style. So let's have a look at the UI. Your health is shown to the top left, and your character is always shown to the top. The two bouncers that you don't play as are always involved in the levels, and they're AI control, and it doesn't matter if AI bouncers die as long as you finish the level. In the top right, you'll see some green pips. Each pip is an enemy remaining on the level. The color is that enemy's health, starting at green and fading through to red. Whenever you hit an enemy, you'll see the enemy's health bar and the name appear to the top right. If there are multiple enemies at different stages of health, there's no way to know what an enemy's health is without hitting them. Health bars are not shown above anyone's head in-game. So let's start hitting things. There's no on-screen button prompts, no tutorial, and no in-game move list unless you're right back at the main menu. So let's look at one of the moves given in the extra moves as an example. Buster Throw. ES plus capital H. What the hell does that mean? Well, despite being exclusively for the PlayStation 2, for some reason they still decided to label the buttons and inputs after what they did, not the actual button you need to press. Along with that, all buttons were pressure sensitive, pressed gently for a light attack and harder for a heavy attack. And they've labeled this by using either lowercase or uppercase letters. Now normally giving pressure sensitivity to a button would be because you've exhausted every other button on the controller, but that's not true. L2 and R2 are not used at all. So the pressure sensitivity was done as a gimmick, not because the controller ran out of buttons. So triangle is high attack, labeled small h for light press and capital H for hard press. Cross is low attack or L, square is middle attack or M, and circle was jump attack or J, despite the fact you don't actually jump, it's just a mid-range, mid-height attack with an in-air animation. But then you had extra skills. If you hold down L1, you go into extra skill mode, which uses all the special attacks you could buy. So when the game says ES plus capital H, it means extra skill plus high hard attack. So hold L1 and press triangle hard. My main feedback is, why on earth did you think this was a good idea? Just label them with the console buttons. This game was only on PS2. You'd have lost nothing by doing that. There's literally no reason to not localize the in-game button prompts to the actual shapes of the buttons on the controller, especially when the only way to decipher this code is to head into the controller config menu, accessible only from the title menu, not in-game. So let's get punching some ninjas. Being hit by basically anything sends anyone, both enemy and ally, into a ragdoll fall. You'll flail around until you get up, and you can still be hit while in ragdoll mode, so you will often be chained into multiple hits of damage. Now, having multiple physics-based ragdoll effects on screen at the same time was, for the time, very impressive. Unfortunately, just because something is technically impressive doesn't mean it's always fun to play. I mean, Bubsy 3D was technically impressive, but it's terrible. Now, there is indeed a joy to be found in knocking an enemy back into a group and seeing them all fall down like a line of bowling pins. But this ragdoll gameplay physics effect was made possible by reducing everything else which makes a beat-em-up or an RPG fun on a moment-to-moment level, reducing the number of enemies on screen, reducing the size of the locations, the length of the level, and having literally no interactable objects, destructible scenery, or power-ups in any level. There is also no dodging, no parrying, and no countering. Very few combos, and while you do have a block, it's limited, as we'll see later. To really drive home how simple and underwhelming the bouncer is, Metal Gear Solid 2, Devil May Cry, and Final Fantasy X all released less than 1 year later. Defeating enemies earns you BP or bouncer points, and if you defeat multiple in quick succession, you'll get chained kill combo multipliers. But if one of the AI computer-controlled bouncers lands the final blow on an enemy, you get no points. This includes boss fights. This opening fight takes me 4 minutes and I'm pretty much just mashing buttons, so that's a 7-minute intro cinematic for a 4-minute opening level. Now I'll keep track of this because this will matter. Remember, 1 year later, Devil May Cry, Metal Gear Solid 2, Final Fantasy X. Massive environments, huge long connected gameplay. The bouncer, absolutely tiny levels with more loading and cutscenes than gameplay. After each level, the RPG element kicks in. You can spend your bouncer points on upgrading your health, power, and block meter. If you do nothing but upgrade these 3 things, you can normally max them all by the end of the game. Or you can buy powerful combat and special attacks. So Dominique gets taken, and I very quickly realize these cinematics are more fun than the gameplay. Also, why does Ko have anime eyes?
Who are they?
They were from Mikado.
Let's go to Mikado.
There's a special train at the central station that's headed for Mikado.
When?
In half an hour.
Let's go then, we don't have much time.
And now for some character backstory. Between levels, you'll not only get cutscenes, but also these still images of scripted conversations from the character's past. The script you get will depend on the character you just played as, and they're meant to fill in the backstories, but they are loading screens and disappear once the level has loaded, meaning you don't actually always have time to read and understand them before they are gone, and that's a shame because these are quite important at understanding the plot. The next cutscene leading to the outside street fight was 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And now level 2, choose a character again. So let's discuss the story progression issue. You can choose to play as a different bouncer for every level, and the bouncer points you gain through defeating enemies will go to that bouncer. This means you can level everyone up equally if you want to. However, the cutscenes between levels or the levels themselves will sometimes differ based on who you choose. This means the bouncer is essentially 3 separate storylines all running simultaneously and intertwining with each other at certain parts. And sometimes things will happen which make very little sense to you on your first playthrough, but when you replay the game as a different character, you then get to see the setup which leads to the event happening. And it's an interesting way to design a game. But jumping from character to character between levels means you level everyone slowly, and by the final boss fight, everyone ends up weak, which means everyone dies. Now, the AI is never as good as you are, so mechanically, you're actually encouraged to choose just one character and stick with them. Also, from a narrative point of view, the complete story only makes total sense when you've experienced all 3 direct complete playthroughs, so instead of switching per level, it's much better to do complete playthroughs with one character at a time. So while the game encourages you to switch between levels, both mechanical advantage and narrative consistency discourage that. So for the first full playthrough, I'll just play as Scion, but then I will go through with the other 2 to fill in all of the gaps. This outside fight takes 1 minute and 20 seconds. I buy Scion a new move, and does his voice actor change here? So far, Scion has been cocky American teenager. Why does his voice sound British for this one line?
We've wasted enough time on them.
That cutscene was 1 minute and 15 seconds, and the following level, which despite being a different location is mechanically identical to every other level in the game, takes 1 minute and 13 seconds. Just trust me on these timings. I am building up to something here. In addition, between the end of each level, each cutscene, or between cutscenes themselves, is a black loading screen which lasts between 3 to 12 seconds, and these really begin to add up.
You're not getting paid enough to die. Now get out of my way!
I agree, not a gain indeed. Honestly, the time between gameplay sections is getting a bit silly now. The majority of this game is not actually playing, it's just waiting for it to load. Dominique has now been whisked away to a train, so we give chase. The train is carrying rocket fuel for the launch of the spaceship Gallios. Its mission is to dock with the energy satellite in low orbit. So we fight our way along the train roof until we bump into Echidna, a Mikado super assassin and old friend of Volt.
If you don't have a ticket, you're gonna have to pay. And this ride ain't cheap.
Where did you take Dominique?
So nice to see you again, Echidna.
Is that you, Volt? I thought I finished him off.
Indeed. But I'm not the Volt you once knew. Now it's your turn to take a trip to hell.
Unfortunately, I only know Echidnas from Knuckles through Sonic, so when they made Echidna in the Bouncer mostly red with spiky hair, you can't really help but draw comparisons. Echidna does her best impression of Eddie Gordo from Tekken. In fact, I think she uses his exact moveset and idle animations, and this boss fight lasts 44 seconds. I upgrade some more and rank up, and these ranks mean nothing and don't affect anything. Echidna then leaps from the train to reappear later, and some attack jets piloted by an unknown force blast the train with bullets, knocking out the brakes. Honestly, the cutscenes really do feel like leftover high-quality Final Fantasy plotlines they just hastily threw together with a lackluster beat-em-up as connecting glue. We need a card key to escape this carriage, so behold this thrilling gameplay section. You need to interact with 3 boxes and find a card key. You cannot fail this, it is not timed. this is also the only time you need to do this. So what you have was a fantastic high-octane 2-minute and 40-second cutscene heralding the arrival of the dullest 28 seconds of gameplay, and I use the word gameplay in the loosest possible sense. The train then crashes into Mikado Station and we run inside. Another 1 minute and 20 seconds of cutscene leads to a 40-second fighting section and then the running bit. I describe this as the running bit because you need to clear 3 identical corridors of enemies and make it up some stairs, but all of the enemies attack you at the start of the individual corridors and the rest of the corridor is just blank. The only focus is how extreme the hip wiggle is on every single character. You effectively have to fight through 3 identical floors and then, oh my god, scenery, boxes, look! Boxes! They break up the monotony of the level. Will they be used? Are they breakable? Are they climbable? Do they hide enemies? Can you hide behind them? No! To all of these things, you literally just run through them as the world's laziest maze and then get back to fighting in the sparse corridor. Also note how Volt's jacket has a cactuar on it in case any of you forgot that Square also made Final Fantasy, which is a much better game series. Break into Mikado City and leap onto a flying platform. A 2-minute cutscene leads to a 33-second tiny platform fight. Interesting note, when you grab an enemy to throw them, their hitbox is still active in your throw animation. So if one of the AI bouncers punches the enemy before your throw animation finishes, it will cancel your throw by hitting the enemy, and then in some cases, the resulting ragdoll enemy physics will connect with you and knock you down too. The pilot of the platform we have hijacked parachutes off, probably the most sensible choice in the entire game, and then Volt flies the platform up above the central city gardens, and while flying, we spot Dominique lying motionless on a bed inside a big glass dome. So we crash the platform onto the botanical gardens, and this cutscene happens.
Just be grateful you're alive.
Yeah.
Dome. I'm sure I saw Dominique in there.
Let's go check it out. Shut up. We don't want them to find us.
The first time I saw this, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Like, actually laugh out loud. Look, game, I know you're trying to be all serious and sneaky, but this is hilarious. It's a ninja descending a tree by crawling down it face first, and he is dummy thick. I mean, look at those buns. These guys do not skip squat day. 35-second cutscene, 40-second level, and the guard dogs fight by slapping you with their paws. We then meet Mugetsu, the crazy ninja from the opening. He shows up and we fight. Nothing stand out here at all. Technically, he is a boss, but all bosses are basically the same. A vaguely different moveset flanked by normal enemies, which is a real shame because there's a lot that you could do to differ a boss's moveset. Whether it's movement, attack styles, environment, status effects, blocking, chaining attacks, it's not like Square don't know how to do these things. It's like they made a 3D beat-em-up game, then tacked on an RPG upgrade system entirely from the menu, but never figured out how to make the beat-em-up feel like an RPG itself. And it's not like Square don't know how to do narrative-driven beat-em-ups, because Tekken 3 released several years before The Bouncer, with the side-scrolling Tekken Force mode, where you just fought as long as you could in a vaguely 2.5D environment with health and power-ups, where you just scrolled through fighting, and it was the best part of the game. By this point, they've also just given up animating characters' mouths in cutscenes too.
I'm not gonna lose anyone else ever again. This thing's pretty big up close.
I don't know how we're gonna get past this.
We're not giving up yet.
We can't get into the glass dome that Dominique is in because there's a big pit around the edge, so Scion climbs a tree and then a random song starts that he recognizes. Cuts to a woman playing the piano, but it's not a woman, it's a shape-shifting panther. And then Master Wong, the guy who trained Scion many years ago, turns up inside the dome and talks to Master Duragon. He's the main bad guy. Duragon says, "Transport Dominique to the Gallios," and Master Wong says, "No, she's still too weak," and the music has been audio balanced way louder than the voices.
What do you mean, Wong? Dominique has returned. It is now possible. But As Chief Executive Officer, I order you, Wong.
So it turns out Dominique is Duragon's sister, and then Duragon kills Master Wong, and then somehow we are now inside the dome, and this was a 4-minute and 30-second cutscene for a 45-second boss fight against Duragon, and the Panther joins in, and I'm convinced Duragon has Kazuya's moveset from Tekken. We're about halfway through the game by now, and the vast majority of the game has just been cutscenes. Oh, interesting fact, the world speed run of this game is 22 minutes long. And that's just playing every level and skipping every cutscene. We beat Duragon in the fight, but lose to him in the cutscene. He then snaps his fingers, and the trio fall through a magical floor, and now we get a bit of backstory about Duragon.
Please, open up! My sister, she's dying!
Oh dear, where are your mother and father? One moment. Doctor! Doctor! I'm sorry, the doctor's on a house call right now. You'll have to find another hospital.
Please! I don't have anywhere else to go! Please! Please save my sister!
Are you all right? Good heavens! To the hospital, quickly!
At once, sir.
So Duragon and his sister Dominique were poor, ill children. The hospital turned them away, but Master Mikado rescued them and then adopted them. Then Master Mikado died and Duragon inherited the Mikado Company. This cutscene is 4 minutes and 38 seconds long. And now with all of our heroes split up, we have 3 separate adventures to go on. But you can only experience 1 per playthrough. So let's start with Sion, who is locked in a room. How do you break out of a locked room? That's right. You run at the door really fast. I don't think that's quite how high-tech door locks work, but okay. You now fight your way past security and then this bit. Explore the building. Except you can't press any buttons, you can't jump or climb, you can't collect anything, you can't perform any combat moves, and you can't interact with anything here. What you can do is run through several very small, very boring rooms with loading screens between all of them before fighting some ninjas. Honestly, this entire exploration bit is just filler, and you don't need filler when your actual gameplay of your game is less than half an hour long. Rank up to E and then explore some more, and now we're also fighting trash cleaning robots who will charge at your shins and knock you down, and all enemies must be defeated before moving on to the next area. And as the robots are short, high attacks will miss them, meaning you've got to keep spamming low kick to actually beat them. Eventually make it to this internal office with an active PC, so we access it, and now you can browse some files, mostly information on Mikado's soldiers, their paramilitary programs, the satellite and the clones that they're working on, and oh man, that clone looks cool. I hope they're a big part of the game and not a sub 1 minute boss fight. Eventually you read about Chaldea Orchid, who Sion recognizes as an old friend. Why is everyone involved somehow connected to Sion? I thought maybe Sion has a deep secret, a history, a past, but nope, it genuinely is just coincidence. Then you read about Project A2, which involves Dominique, but you need a password, and before you can read more, enemies show up and break the PC. So we fight our way out, and then we meet and fight the magical Panther.
What the? So now it's human. Who are you?
Good question, Sion. Maybe they're your old friend Chaldea, who you just read a file on about how her DNA was spliced with a panther, but I guess we'll never know. The next few lines just drive home how bad both the writing and the delivery is, and I don't believe it's the voice actor's fault, I believe it's the director's fault for not giving them the context that these lines need to be delivered in.
What was that all about?
Finally finds Dominique on a couch, Sion gets grabbed by Mugetsu, then Volt shows up and throws a Mikado soldier at us, which turns out to be Ko in disguise. To find out how all these stories intersect, you need to replay this section as well. If you needed any more proof the writing was both terrible and derivative of other better works, this is Mugetsu's battle cry.
Don't make me angry! You wouldn't like me when I'm angry!
A 2-minute and 23-second cutscene for a 55-second boss fight, and despite invoking the spirit of the Hulk, there's no consequence for actually making this guy angry, no rage meter, no phases, no mechanics. There is nothing that relates him being angry to him being a better fighter. You defeat him by just kicking him in the face a lot. We rescue Dominique and try to escape. Volt suggests we flee to the rocket tower, with one person staying to protect Dominique while the other two run off to distract the guards, and you have to choose who stays with Dominique. Now, no matter who you choose, the next part plays out exactly the same. You have to fight through a wave of loader robots on some gantries. And here is where I discover one of the dumbest mechanics: the block feature. And I think it's a scathing indictment of the game that I have never been told about block or how it works. Holding R1 raises your guard, and when you get hit you will absorb all the damage if you are guarding, but your block meter will go down, and when your block meter is empty, you cannot block anymore, and there is no way to replenish your health or block meter while in a level. So how do you see how much block you have remaining? Surely there's a bar on screen or a heads-up display meter. Well, no. The only way to see your remaining block for this level is to pause the game, open the stats menu, and check your defense stat. Now, I assumed defense would simply be a blanket reduction to all incoming damage, but no, this is your block meter. What this means is, with no way to dodge, parry, roll, or generally avoid literally any incoming damage beyond blocking, once your block meter is gone, if your health is low, your chance of completing the mission drops to essentially 0. Now, I'm a big fan of allowing a player to succeed at a game through mastery of the controls and systems. Even a super difficult situation can be beaten given the right choices. This is how you're able to finish games like Dark Souls or Elden Ring with low numbers but correct gameplay. My issue with the bouncer is, once you've run out of block for a level, the right choice is only ever attack with everything and pray the enemy doesn't use a single attack back, because if they do, you have no way to avoid the damage. I have to reload this level a lot, make it through the robot gantry place, and have an emotional chat with Dominique on the lift, which features some of the most boring writing and voice acting I've ever listened to.
Sion.
Huh?
Can I stay with you always?
What's this all of a sudden?
I don't like this place. Mr. Wong was the one who helped me escape.
My master?
And then I met you, Sion.
Dominique.
It's almost impressive how bad this whole scene is, and you know, for a game that's more cutscene than gameplay, you'd have thought they'd have spent more time making the cutscenes enjoyable. And now a boss. Remember the clone the PC mentioned? Well, they appear. They are a badass cyborg with a segmented whip arm, and they throw Dominique away, and then Volt and Co show up again, and we all fight the cyborg. A 3-minute cutscene for a 49-second fight. But then, oh no, even more cyborgs show up. But it's okay, because Dominique is a cyborg too.
I don't like these odds at all.
Sion!
So it seems the Mikado Corporation, human experiments, cyborgs, and unlimited energy satellite are all connected. Duragon was experimenting on humans using the Mikado vast fortune until he could perfect cloning and cyber technology to bring his dead sister back to life. However, in another twist, she is also now part of the satellite control mechanism. Having used all her energy to save us, Dominique falls unconscious, and we get even more of Duragon's backstory. It seems that Volt was an ex-bodyguard to the previous Master Mikado, which is why he knows so much. And Duragon, after inheriting Mikado, built the energy satellite and turned his sister into a clone, but then she escaped and started hanging out at the bar. This is a 4-minute and 49-second cutscene, leading to a 43-second fight against a machine where I spam kick and win. 50 seconds of Sion talking with no facial animation, and then Echidna returns with the most intense close-up jiggle physics the game has to offer, which means everyone who wasn't paying attention to this video now is. Hey, it's good to have you back. This is the first time I legitimately die, and when you die, the game just finishes. That's it. You're back on the main menu. You can only restart from your last save game, so I hope you've been saving after every single mission, despite the fact the save process takes an entire minute to do. We beat Echidna, and then the Gallios, the Mikado space spaceship destined for the energy satellite has launched. But where is it launching from? We're in a city. We've seen we're in a city. Why does the cutscene look like we're in the middle of an empty ocean? In the cutscene, the Gallios is attacked by a squadron of fighter jets, the same people who attacked the train earlier, but we still don't know who these people are. So then Ko pilots one of the flying platforms we saw earlier, and we give chase after the Gallios. The crazy ninja Mugetsu shows back up again, and this cutscene is 5 whole minutes long, and as a reward we get to enjoy a 75-second fight on this tiny platform, which ends in us kicking Mugetsu off the edge and watching him burn up in the trail of the Gallios jet engines, which to be fair is a very cool way to kill a bad guy. This leads to a 1.5-minute cutscene where Duragon reveals his true plan. The satellite can indeed supply unlimited energy, but it is also an orbiting laser cannon. So he activates it and blasts the hospital which refused to treat him and his sister so many years ago. It also seems that Dominique's cyborg body is an integral part of how this laser targeting system works, which is why he wanted her back. Why he couldn't just build another one, I don't know. The Black Panther returns and we fight for 32 seconds using only low attacks because nothing else can hit her, and then a cutscene reveals the Panther was Chaldea, Scion's old friend. Her and Scion share a moment, but then she's killed by Duragon throwing a chain right through her. Volt then says the greatest line in the entire game.
Stop it, Duragon.
Imagine, just imagine if that had worked. If there was a moment and he was all, you know what? You're right. I will stop. Turn the satellite off. I'm changing my ways. If that was how the game actually ended, it would have almost redeemed it. But no, you have a 2-minute and 20-second monologue leading to a 1-minute 40-second boss fight. All 3 of you wail on Duragon. He is somewhat tough, but ultimately the same as any other boss, except he, finally, has phases. And beating his first phase causes him to say this.
You could never understand the humiliation that I have gone through. The burden of having to be the best, of having to be worthy.
Just a note from a design point of view, ripping off your badass floor-length coat to reveal that you're wearing denim overalls and nothing else is the exact opposite of intimidating. Unfortunately, you do carry health forward from phase 1 to phase 2, so I stun-lock Duragon with cheesy moves and finally kill him.
This can't be.
I'm a bouncer. I make a living putting my life on the line.
Oh no.
Hey, we're gonna ram the satellite! Volt, change course!
This ain't no air carrier.
Damn it!
The back.
Huh?
The back of this big ship. The back of it will return to Earth.
What are you talking about, Dominique?
I saw it in that horrible dream. This big ship splits into 2.
In your dream?
It's true.
I'm gonna trust Dominique.
The Gallios ship is then on a collision course to the satellite, but Dominique tells you the ship is about to break in 2 and the back half is going to return to Earth. So we flee to the back half while the front half breaks apart and crashes into the laser satellite, and we then see Duragon's body floating in space, and we end where we started, back at the bar. Credits roll and a song plays. Finishing the game with Scion gets us the after credit sequence showing him meeting Dominique for the first time, which was clearly some time ago. So how long did it take Mikado to track down their billion-dollar cyborg girl? Did someone not just put a tracking chip in her or something? Right, first playthrough done, but we've got a few plot holes to fill in, so we can start again. You choose extra game and just begin again. Thankfully, your characters keep all the same stats and skills from the last time, meaning your AI companions, if you're playing as someone else, are now much stronger. So why would you replay the game? Well, mostly to see the full story and to unlock the hidden characters for the versus mode and the survival mode, or to unlock the hidden actual final boss. But just out of curiosity, I decided to add up my times of cutscene versus gameplay. On that first playthrough where I used Scion and paused the game to take notes, I didn't count the time while paused, but the bouncer contains roughly 44 minutes of cutscenes, 9 minutes of loading screens, and 40 minutes of actual gameplay. To visualize this, here is the video file of my complete second playthrough as Volt from start to finish, skipping all skippable cutscenes. The video file is 57 minutes long, and 11 of those minutes are unskippable black loading screens. So what things do I notice in my second playthrough? Well, the first Echidna boss fight takes 29 seconds when you know what to do, and I noticed the points counter after every level has space for 6 figures, which makes me think they were extremely optimistic in how many times they thought people would be willing to replay this game, as nobody is getting 999,000 points. 25 minutes in and we're back at the prison capture split up bit, and Volt is being held in a restraining cell, so he breaks out and we get to knock down a gang of guys like bowling pins, and then we head to the PC room that Scion was in, but we find it broken, meaning this event happens after Scion reads about Project A2 and gets attacked. By the 34-minute mark, I've leveled Volt's power to maximum, and at 36 minutes, I've realized you can just kick quicker than the robots can attack back, and you don't need to block. And hitting them in the middle of their attack animation freezes them. So I spam kick for the entire level. In fact, by the end of this level, I've used 10 points of block, and that was because I pressed R1 by accident. At 44 minutes in, I repeat my robot kicking technique on the cyborg boss, and it works, and at 55 minutes in, I kick Duragon down repeatedly, and by 56 we are done, getting the Echidna ending. Now Ko's turn. At least Ko's character is a bit more upbeat and cocky, so his cutscenes don't drag quite as much, and this is easier as Scion and Volt are now maxed out. At 6 minutes in, I unlock the heel kick attack, which is an almost guaranteed knockdown and can hit somebody on the floor, and so will be my crutch for the whole run. 21 minutes in, I've reached the prison split section. However, unlike Scion being in a locked room and Volt being in a literal restraining prison cell, Ko is just in a locker room somewhere. Then a ninja walks in, you fight, and take their uniform, and now begins the most random minigame: matching emotes to communicate. Turns out Mikado ninjas communicate through poses, despite the fact we've heard them talk to each other and never seen them do this. Triangle is old man in thought, circle is a lady's temptation, cross is lonely warrior, and square is unparalleled friendship, and we are shown this through the only tutorial screen the game has. Ko now walks along through the building on rails, and when we bump into someone, we have to simply match their stance, and if you fail, you just fight them like normal. In the first area, it's pretty easy, just copy one position per guard, but this second area sees us copy this guard 20 times, and then this guy who moves super fast, and you must match at speed, and then finally you match 2 people. Now I've made this seem quick, but it's not. This segment lasts between 6 and 9 minutes, which means it is the longest uninterrupted segment of gameplay in the entire game. Ko reaches the top floor where Dominique is and goes to rejoin Scion, but gets picked up by Volt as Volt assumes he is an enemy and thrown into the room, which now explains what happened earlier. However, listen to the line, "Wait, it's me." This is proof the voice actors had no context for how these lines should be said, because there is no way a professional voice actor would decide this is the energy that matches this scene.
Volt? Wait, it's me!
Fight the robot boss again, spam kick them to death, have the elevator scene again, it's no better than the last 2 times, beat the cyborg again and Echidna again, and then finally, 30 minutes in, get a unique story beat to fill in the last question. It seems that Ko was the heir to the Hearst family fortune, but turned down that life to study martial arts and become a secret agent at the Lucas Detective Agency. There he met Officer Leanne Caldwell, they worked together and excelled together, and Lucas got word of what Mikado were doing with their laser satellite project, and also Dominique. So they sent Ko in to pose as a bouncer at the bar Dominique had been seen in to protect her and infiltrate Mikado if possible. Remember the squadron of attack jets that blasted the train and then attacked the Gallios as it was flying away? They are Lucas Agency jets commanded by Leanne, Ko's partner. And in this cutscene, you actually learn it was Leanne's suggestion that Ko used the flying platform to chase after the Gallios.
With that,
You think we can catch it with that?
Let's go while those fighters are keeping it busy.
I just hope we make it before the boosters ignite.
You better hurry.
Now, credit where credit is due, the make it before the boosters ignite is a lovely bit of foreshadowing for how Mugetsu actually dies. Fight the Panther boss again, and in a nice touch, if you kill the Panther as Ko, you get some new dialogue, but as usual, the emotional tone is just all over the place.
Sion?
She resembles someone who's very important to me.
She died long ago.
Come on, Sion. Let's go get Dominique.
Finally make it back to Duragon, take down phase 1 and 2, and now finally, after the third playthrough, we unlock the actual hidden final boss.
This can't be.
Mission complete.
Good. Good. I never expected anyone to push me so far. Pardon my past discourtesies. I will forget the past. I no longer care about the indignation I have suffered. I should thank you for opening my eyes to this new indulgence.
The only thing more intimidating than ripping off your clothes to show your overalls is ripping off your overalls. So this is third phase Duragon. I was expecting new music, a new location, new moves, maybe environmental changes, enemy adds, callback to old bosses, but honestly, the only real way to explain and convey how disappointing this final fight is to just show you my very first attempt, unedited. This is the secret final boss. "34 seconds. The hidden final boss attacked me with a single kick, which was entirely negated by blocking, and then died in 34 seconds. What even is this game? Right, Ko's ending actually lets you fight Leanne, and if you win, you unlock her as a special character in survival mode. But what is survival mode, I hear you cry for some reason? Well, you choose any unlocked character and just try to survive as long as you can, like I'm using Super Secret Duragon here. However, each stage in survival mode is extremely short, and the loading times are longer. So in this 11 minutes of video footage, I was only in gameplay for 7 minutes. That's 3 minutes of loading in 11 minutes of game. That is 27% loading screen. So finally, after finishing this game 3 times just to unlock the most disappointing final boss in history, we can answer the simple question, the bouncer, was it any good? No. No, it was not. Look, if you had this as a kid and you have good memories of it, I'm not saying you're wrong for enjoying it, and I'm not saying those memories are invalid. I had this as a kid. I loved it. It was the coolest thing ever to 11-year-old me, but replaying it as an adult, it is honestly extremely disappointing. In some decisions, it's downright baffling, but put very simply, it's a bad game. It's the meeting of two minds, an RPG legend and a beat-em-up legend, both designing a game which plays to the strengths of neither. The combat system is sluggish, but also apparently easily exploitable. The ragdoll system means you spend more time being knocked down and getting up than fighting, and the bare-bones level design misses out on almost all the extra things which make free-roaming beat-em-ups, especially within the 3D environment, better, like paths and choices, jumping or height variation, breakable scenery, objects, weapons, or longer levels. The plot is rather interesting, but rushed through so quickly you can't really get invested in it. It feels like a 50-hour Final Fantasy plot distilled down to fit the runtime of a beat-em-up. And when the gameplay sections take up less of the game than the cutscenes, you don't have a game. You have a film with some quick-time events in it masquerading as gameplay. It is extremely short. In fact, you could probably finish the entire game in less time than it takes to watch this video. And the only replay value is in fleshing out the plot, as each of the 3 bouncers play so similar to each other, there's not really that much that helps them stand apart or feel special or unique. Expecting someone to endure a game which is over 60% cutscene or loading screen is absurd, and when the longest part of your playable game section is a tie between running in a straight line down an empty corridor or matching poses in a ninja minigame, you should probably rethink what you want your actual game to be. Ultimately, The Bouncer was an impressive graphical leap forward. The CGI cutscenes still hold up, and the ragdoll physics were impressive for the day. They really showcased the PlayStation 2's power. But it's also an apt reminder that sacrificing everything in pursuit of graphics results in a pretty game with nothing to it. So the next time someone says that better graphics make a better game, remind them that The Bouncer came out in 2000 and Tekken 3 came out in 1997. So judging it squarely as a game, no pun intended, The Bouncer is neither a good beat-em-up nor a good RPG. So to end the review, I will award The Bouncer...
Stop it, Duragan.
...out of 10. Cheers for watching. Another massive thank you to all the supporters on Patreon, Twitch and YouTube who keep this channel alive. You can support from only £1 a month. Check the video description for links to the Patreon, Twitch, Twitter and our Discord. And as always, remember...
The Bouncer.
I'm a bouncer.
The Bouncer. Stop it, Duragan. The Bouncer.